Well, a question. When I say I, where are you going to put it? In the head? In the chest? Somewhere along the railways of the nerves? Now where am I? Am I in a pulse beat? In a throb behind the eyes? In the wind of the breath? No, not in the pulse, not in the breath, not in the brain. No surgeon has ever yet found any me inside of a body. They have found tissue, bone, blood, and thought's electric echoes. But not I. Not the one who knows that these are being observed. Anxiety builds its house upon a presumption that the I is housed in a perishable dwelling, located at an address in flesh, surrounded by events that can rush the door. Anxiety must have a location, here in the gut, there in the future, over there in the phone call that has not yet come. It must pin the I to a place, to a time, to a forecast. The moment it cannot find the I in matter, its argument begins to crumble. Its hands close on air. It has no hold where there is no hook. Consider it quietly. When you touch your temple and say, I, is that I beneath the skin? If the thought slows, do you go out of existence? If the heart speeds, are you a bigger self? If the heart is still, are you less? No, not a bit. I am not in the physical. I am not in the physical. The physical may appear within my awareness as a picture appears on a screen, but the screen does not enter the picture. So it is with the true I and the body. You cannot leave the body because you are not in it and never have been in it. Now this is not a puzzle for cleverness. This is the doorway through which fear loses its foundation. For if I am not body, not mind as the thinker of thoughts, then what am I? Awareness. Life aware of itself. The lived, present truth the apostle whispered, absent from the body, present with the Lord. Not as a theology on a page, but as a felt location of identity. Present with the Lord is a dwelling place, not somewhere else in space, but here as consciousness unbound. Consciousness that does not begin at the skull and end at the heel. Anxiety asks for methods. How to slow the breath, how to still the mind, how to move the pieces on the board so tomorrow will play fair. But there is no final rest in techniques, because methods assume the I is a body trying to survive better. We are not improving the cage, we are stepping out of the mistake that the bird was in it. The end of anxiety is not a new trick for the nervous system. It is the discovery that the I you are is not in the nervous system at all. Let the question work in you as a gentle flame. Where does the I live? Do not rush to answer. Permit the falsities to fall away. Not in the pulse, not in the breath, not in the brain. As this recognition begins, even as a glimmer, the tide of fear ebbs, because it cannot threaten what it cannot find. And the I that remains is quietly, simply present with the Lord. Here it is. Here I am. Now notice the modern pattern. One more breathing exercise, one more supplement, one more mindset, one more app that counts and tracks and whispers that safety is around the next corner. For a moment, there is quiet, and then the next gust rises because the premise was never touched. The premise remained. I am a body trying to survive in a field of danger. As long as you live as a body trying to survive, fear will always find a new reason. It will borrow chemistry today and headlines tomorrow and a memory the day after. It will put on new clothes each morning because you have given it a wardrobe. Identity in matter.
Do not misunderstand me. Techniques may soothe. They may quiet a symptom.
They may give the nerves a Sabbath. Let them soothe if they can. But the identity remains unexamined if we merely polish the bars of the belief. If the I is still located as flesh under stress, then even your calm becomes another labor of the flesh. That is why the soul grows tired on a treadmill of methods. The treadmill is fueled by the same belief that set it spinning. I am in the physical. I must manage my way to God. No. No. I am not in the physical. God is not found by technique. God is the life of I already. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. When that is realized, techniques fall back into their proper proportion. Useful, perhaps, but never saviors. Here is the gentle correction, and it carries moral gravity because it is a law, not a lecture. Thou shalt have no other gods but one. We smile and think of statues, but our age bows to subtler altars. Blood numbers, cortisol curves, devices, regimens, the ever-changing edicts of sensation. When we enthrone the body as authority, we live under the body's changing laws. Fatigue is law, chemistry is law, sensation is law, and fear is the tax collector. As you sow, so shall ye reap. This is not condemnation, it is the mathematics of consciousness. Violate 2 times 2 is 4, and you bring the penalty of confusion. Locate power in what can change, and you inherit the fear that attends what can change. It is a double-edged sword. Do not tamper with it. I do not give human advice. I am not substituting these words for the care you may require. Keep your practitioners, your medicines, your rest and prudence as you are led. But while you attend to the body, discover that you are not the body you attend. Absent from the body, present with the Lord. Let the body be lovingly cared for, yet cease from worshiping at its altar. Let God be God. God is the actor and the doer and the be-er. I am merely the instrument. Then relief begins in a new place. The soul is no longer tasked with saving the flesh, and so it is no longer exhausted by a job it cannot finish. Anxiety loses its mandate because you have removed its throne. In my oneness with God, I find that safety is not an achievement, but a state of being. Father, live thy life as this life. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. And where grace is sufficiency, fear has no further case to argue. Let us make the foundation sure. No surgeon has ever found me. They have opened bones, repaired organs, traced nerves like shining wires. They have catalogued the impulses that flash and fade. But they have not taken up a scalpel and lifted out an eye. They have not laid it on a tray and stitched it back again. Not once. They have found the instrument. They have not found the player. If an arm is removed, are you less you? If a leg is gone, have you misplaced yourself? When the hair falls or the teeth are taken out, do you cease to be I? If the voice changes, if the handwriting shifts after an illness, is identity diminished? No, not a bit. You remain the one aware of the changes, just as you were the one aware of the hair, the teeth, the voice before. The form alters, the witness abides. This is simple, but do not hurry past it. It is the foundation stone. We harbor a secret presumption. I am inside the body. How do you know that? Because sensation shouts loudly, and habit bows to the shout. A twinge in the chest, and the mind points, there I am. A flush in the face, and the mind says, here I am. But the sensation that announces itself is reported to you. If you can notice it, you are not it. If you can observe the thought that explains it, you are not the thought. The observer of sensation and the knower of thought stand prior to both, as the screen stands prior to whatever picture moves across it. Body is instrument. Mind is instrument. Nerves are instrument. They are good instruments, wonderful when tuned, pitiful when strained, but still instruments. A violin can be said to be bright or dull. The music is not in the wood. A radio can hum or crackle. The program is not housed in the coil. So too with this flesh and these thoughts, useful apparatus through which life sings, yet never the life itself. I am not in the physical. I am not in the physical. Say it without defiance, without denial, but as simple refusal to imprison the infinite in a single address. This is not a metaphysician's riddle. It is practical freedom. Anxiety looks for a point to attack. It wants an address, here in the chest, there in the future, somewhere in the scan or the story. When identity is not localized, fear finds no handle. What can it seize if the I is not housed in matter, not framed by a thought, not shackled to a heartbeat? It can swirl at the window, but it cannot enter where there is no door. Absent from the body, present with the Lord. Here is a lived location, not a departure from the body, for you cannot leave what you were never in, but a release from bondage to its verdicts. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. In that oneness, I am safe, not as a person defended, but as presence unconfined. God is the actor and the doer and the beer. I am merely the instrument. Let the instrument be cared for. Let the player be trusted. And as trust settles, the foundation holds. The I you truly are cannot be found in matter. Therefore, it cannot be threatened by matter. Now let us come to the law. Not a church rule, not a preacher's threat. Law, as exact as mathematics, as simple as engineering. You are not punished by a principle. You meet its result. Violate 2 times 2 is 4, and you do not incur wrath. You inherit confusion. Ignore the load-bearing column, and the roof does not scold you. It collapses. This is impersonal. This is precise. It works for emperor and child alike. It is the same with a traffic law. Drive against it, and the ditch does not hate you. It receives you. So in consciousness. Place power where it does not belong, and you will reap the fruit that does belong to that seed. As you sow, so shall ye reap. Hear it now as psychology, as spirit, as the mathematics of identity. Sow yourself into matter. Declare by fear or worship that flesh, finance, headlines, and pulses are powers, and you reap the conditions of matter as masters. If you make the body your God, then chemistry becomes your clergy, and every weather of sensation will preach at you. If you make the market your God, then numbers become your tyrant, and every tick enslaves your peace. This is not your personal failure. This is lawful effect. When power is located in what can change, anxiety becomes reasonable in that universe. It is a double-edged sword. Don't tamper with it. Thou shalt have no other gods but one is not a religious boast. It is a statement of cosmic engineering. One power, one cause, all else are effects. If you reverse that, effects frighten you because you have attempted to enthrone them. There is another edge to this law, and I speak it with the same sobriety. You cannot use it selfishly without it using you. If you set about manipulating thoughts to bend a person or an outcome, the very tension you plant returns as torment in your own field. When you weaponize attention, attention becomes a weapon against you. Do you see? There can be no selfish purpose in a cosmic law. Try to draft the infinite for private conquest, and you slice your own piece. Not because God is offended, but because the one cannot be divided to serve two masters. Love thy neighbor as thyself is not piety. It is safety. The attempt to take from another is the attempt to divide the indivisible, and the cut is felt in the cutter. Now the hope, and it is not small. The same principle that exposes error restores harmony when we align. Shift allegiance. Withdraw belief from matter as power, from mind as monarch. Stand absent from the body, present with the Lord. In that presence, effects fall back into their place, servants, not sovereigns. When one is recognized as one, fear has no second power to oppose it. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. Therefore, nothing outside can threaten the within that is without circumference. It is mathematics again. When the premise is right, the sum balances. When the foundation is true, the house rests. In my oneness with God, I find security not by holding the world, but by ceasing to hold any power but God. And as that allegiance becomes steady, the lawful fruit appears. Quiet, composure, the end of anxious bargaining. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things, and where grace is sufficiency, there is no other claimant to fear. Now we meet the place where many of you have grown weary, the inner warfare. You sit as a sentry at the gate of thought, swatting, shooing, arguing, pleading with the very shadows you fear. And in that effort, you certify their jurisdiction. When you fight a thought, you agree that it has standing before the court of I. The fighter and the fear share the same stage. They keep each other employed. Do you see? You cannot silence a radio by shouting over it. You only make more noise. You cannot still the wind by wrestling with it. You only tire your arms. The instant mind is taken as monarch, whether adored or opposed. You have enthroned a second power, and anxiety bows to that idol's every whim. Here is the principle, and it is not of my making. I am merely the instrument. God is the actor and the doer and the beer. Freedom begins where personal will ceases to meddle. Non-interference is not laziness. It is obedience to law. As you sow, so shall ye reap. Sow struggle as method, and you reap struggle as atmosphere. Sow deference to one power, and you reap the quiet that attends one. When you stop granting the mind authority over I, you withdraw the electricity from its theater. The pictures may flicker a while, but the projector has lost its current. I must speak a warning with the same gentleness with which I speak comfort. Do not try to conquer the mind by occult means. Do not force visions. Do not project yourself to bend another's actions. Do not attempt mental domination. Do not hypnotize yourself toward outcomes. When you weaponize attention, attention becomes a weapon against you. There is no selfish purpose in a cosmic law. Use it to take, and it will take from you. Not as punishment, but as mathematics. I have studiously avoided mental and physical contacts for that very reason. I never give human advice. Let the Father within do all the blessing. God is the actor. We are not to play God to our neighbor, nor to our own thoughts. What then? Receptivity. Listening instead of controlling. Surrender instead of strain. Absent from the body, present with the Lord, not as flight from sensation, but as a refusal to consult the body or the thinking apparatus for the truth of I. Let thoughts be what weather is to the sky, passing. Let sensations be what waves are to the sea, movements, not identity. You do not overcome anxiety by overpowering the mind. You are free the moment you remove its badge. Who told you the mind must be obeyed? Who gave it the keys? Withdraw the credential. Stand as awareness, not as the manager of appearances. In a moment, and it can be this moment, you may test this without performance. No forcing, no goals, no, now I will make silence. Simply a turning. Father, here I am. If words come, let them be few. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. And then, no more doing. Let the inner hands fall to the sides. If thought chatters, let it chatter as a kettle sings. You are not the steam. If a wave of feeling rises, notice it as you would the tide. You are not the shore that is being eaten away. Rest in the fact that my conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. In that acknowledgement, the fight has no opponent. The mind has no throne. The fear has no stage. And you, without moving an inch, are already where peace lives. Now let us enter the inner sanctuary, not with strain, not with performance, but with a simple posture that removes the body from thought. Take a chair, ordinary, comfortable, not so soft that you sink, not so rigid that you ache. Let it be low enough that your feet find the floor firmly. Place the feet flat, a little apart, toes neither gripped nor splayed. Sit upright, not military, not slack, upright as if a quiet thread were lifting the crown of the head. Let the shoulders fall as rain falls from a roof. Let the chest be neither thrust out nor collapsed. Rest the hands lightly upon the thighs or the lap. Palms may face up, not as a signal, but because it relieves the forearms. Do not hook the arms on the chair. Let them hang from the shoulders in their own weight. Gently draw the chin a fraction toward the throat, lengthening the back of the neck. Close the eyes softly, as if they were curtains brought together by a breeze, not clamped. Let the jaw unfasten. Let the tongue rest. There is no occult reason for any of this, only one of physical comfort, so that in this position with the eyes closed, you are virtually unaware of having a body. The purpose is plain. Not ritual, not magic, not bargaining for results, but to cease consulting the body as the location of the self. Receptivity begins exactly there. When the chair holds you and gravity does its faithful work, you are relieved of posturing for peace. The body can be cared for, yes, but it is no longer the oracle. Absent from the body, present with the Lord. That is the inner architecture of this posture. Now notice, with gentleness, how sensation comes to collect attacks of identity. An itch raises its flag. A warmth pools in the hands. The breath rises and falls and wants to be counted. The heartbeat taps and asks for significance. Let them be. Let itch, itch. Let warmth, warm. Let breath, breathe. Let heart, beat. You are not the custodian of these processes. If you can notice them, you are not them. If a thought arrives to explain them, you are not the thought that explains. Do not make a ceremony of ignoring. Simply decline to sign your name upon any of these reports. No. No. They may pass through. You remain. And now wait, desirelessly. Not for relief as payment for posture. Not for a vision as reward for trying. Naked waiting. If a phrase comes, let it be brief, an opening, not a lever. Father, here I am. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Then no more asking, no more managing. Yield to God as presence. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. In that acknowledgement, the mind has no orders to give, and the body has no verdict to read. Expect nothing and welcome everything. Restlessness may parade on the boulevard, a knee may fidget, a memory may ring the bell. Do not fight. Let it pass as traffic while you remain the witness at the window. Sow struggle, and you reap struggle. Sow non-interference, and you reap quiet. Stay only as awareness, without agenda, without stopwatch, without self-judgment. Present with the Lord is a dwelling, not a performance. In a little while, minutes or more, the edges of the body recede from consultation. You discover you did not leave the body. You stopped appointing it as I. And in that simplicity, you have entered the sanctuary that was always here, not elsewhere. Here, where the sense of I rests without circumference. Here, where God is the actor and you the instrument. Here, where fear finds no address. Here, where peace is not achieved, but present. From here, the turn is simple and radical. A feeling rises, call it anxiety if you wish, and the habit says, I am afraid. Pause. Do not stamp your name across that sentence. Ask quietly, who is aware of this fear? Not, what is the story? Not, where did it come from? Who is aware? Look. Look again. Where is the one who knows this thought? If you can notice the tremor, is the noticer trembling? If you can describe the weather, is the sky shaking? Attend closely. Fear belongs to the movement, not to the stillness. Thoughts are ripples. Awareness is water. Sensation is wind. Awareness is the open sky. The body interprets the gust and rushes to a forecast. Awareness does not forecast. It simply is. Which are you? The wave that rises and falls, or the sea that abides? The whisper that says, danger, or the hearing that registers the whisper and remains unchanged? No, no. You are not the whisper. You are not in the physical. You are the awareness to whom the whisper announces itself. Let there be a little quiet now. No demand, no measuring, no fixing. Rest as the one who knows, and do not name it. Be still and know. If a thought comes to ask, am I doing it right? Let it pass as a bird across the horizon. The horizon does not move to answer. If a pulse knocks at the door, let it knock. The house remains itself whether or not a visitor arrives. Absent from the body, present with the Lord. This is a location of identity, not a trance. It is natural, It is here. Do you feel the difference? Not dissociation, not floating away, not a refusal to care. Rather the returning of I to its native place. The presence that is aware of fear was here before fear appeared. It is here during, and it remains when the wave goes flat. The wave borrows shape and time. The sea does not. So too with you. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. In that oneness, there is no second power called fear with authority to define I. Fear may report, it cannot rule. Let this become practice in a single sentence. You never hurry. I am aware. Say it without ornament, then stop. Notice that awareness has no edge you can touch, no pulse you can quicken, no throat you can tighten. Awareness cannot panic. Only the body's interpretations can. Withdraw the credential. Refuse to consult the interpreter for the truth of I. God is the actor and the doer and the be-er. I am merely the instrument. As instrument, I rest. As awareness, I witness. And in that witnessing, fear has no foundation, because it cannot survive where it cannot attach. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things, and in this sufficiency the sentence changes forever. Not, I am afraid, but I am aware, and awareness knows peace. Absent from the body, present with the Lord. Hear it not as poetry to admire, but as an address to live at. The apostle was not instructing you to drift out of flesh or to despise the instrument. You cannot leave what you were never in. It is not an exit. It is a ceasing to pretend that I is located inside a costume. It is a transfer of allegiance from sensation as oracle to presence as identity. Absent from the body means I no longer consult nerves and narratives for the truth of who I am. Present with the Lord means I rest where being is being, here as living consciousness, the I that is aware. Who then is the Lord? Not a deity afar, bargaining from distance, but presence here. The life that lives this breath without your management. The light by which you know you are. Consciousness itself, before a thought adorns it, before a feeling colors it. I and my Father are one is not a boast, but a fact of identity. God is not a second thing beside you. When you look for two, you lose the one. The discovery is not union achieved, it is union uncovered. Real being is spiritual being, and that spirit is the very I aware of these words. Test it now in the simplest way. Close the eyes softly. Ask, where is here? Do not answer quickly. Wait. Follow the feel of presence. Does it stop at the eyelids? Does it bump the skin and turn back? No. No. It has no edge you can touch. It is not the hum of a nerve, it is that by which the hum is noticed. It is not the chest's rise, it is that within which rise and fall appear. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. In this here, there is no outside and inside. There is only presence without circumference. Now bring this here into the hour that waits. You can be in a meeting and be present with the Lord. You can be in traffic and be present with the Lord. You can be in a hard conversation, the pulse quickened, and still be present with the Lord. This is not denial of the scene, it is refusal to enthrone the scene as power. Thou shalt have no other gods but one is fulfilled when you let one presence be the dwelling place of I, and let all events be what they are, passing formations within the one. Do you see the fruit? Peace no longer depends on the weather of sensations or the kindness of circumstances. Peace rests in place because identity rests in place. God is the actor and the doer and the beer. I am merely the instrument. When the instrument remembers its musician, tones fall true even in storm. As you sow, so shall ye reap. Sow identity in presence, reap composure in change. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Say it not as plea, but as address, as home. For when the Lord is recognized as the actual dwelling place of I, peace ceases to visit and begins to abide. There is a moment in this practice that cannot be bought, timed, or commanded. I have called it the click. Not a sound, not a vision, but a subtle inner confirmation. The sense of being a separate one pressing toward God relaxes, and the strain ends without your arranging it. A quiet authority appears, as if the room is the same, the breath the same, the world the same, but the center has changed address. No one announces it. It does not perform. It simply is. When does it come? Not when you clutch at it. Not when you bargain or threaten or schedule it. No, no. It comes when self-effort yields, when sincerity has nothing left to prove, when receptivity is just receptivity without price. I wait in a state of receptivity until finally the click comes. Sometimes it is a soft loosening behind the sternum. Sometimes the forehead unknits. Sometimes it is only the unmistakable fact that I am no longer chasing anything. Absent from the body, present with the Lord. God is the actor and the doer and the beer. I am merely the instrument. What changes first is seldom the scene. What changes is the seat. The throne of fear is vacated. Identity ceases to consult nerves and narratives, and the mind is relieved of a job it was never hired to do. The same phone may ring. The same bill may sit unopened. The same symptom may tap at the door. But the click has shifted sovereignty, and the disturbance discovers there is no monarch to petition. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. Therefore, effects are restored to their place as effects. A woman wrote after a long season of unrest. She had prayed, read, paced the floor, tried to master the breath. Nothing stayed. One morning, without occasion, as she sat quietly, the push stopped. In the moment of union, she said, the problem was still there, but it no longer owned me. The next calls she had to make were the same calls, but they were not made from panic. Guidance arose without hurry, as if steps were lit one at a time, and each step was enough for that step. These are the markers, not fireworks, but fruit. Compassion increases. You find yourself gentler with your own failings, and slower to judge your neighbors. Control decreases. The compulsion to plan tomorrow's weather withdraws its claws. Guidance arises without panic, clear, simple, without the shrillness of fear or the bribe of outcome. You are less interested in winning and more available for serving. Thou shalt have no other gods but one ceases to be a rule and becomes your atmosphere. Do not attempt to manufacture this threshold. You cannot push the door that only opens inward by stillness. Be faithful to the posture that removes the body from thought. Be faithful to the waiting that asks for nothing. Whisper if you must, and only once. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. then stop. Let grace be grace. And when the click comes, now or later, do not seize it. Trust it. Stand in it. Live from it. For in that conscious union, anxiety has no foundation, because I has no second power to fear.
Now let us take stock.
The world trained us to inventory security by counting bodies and balances, clocks and calendars, headlines and handshakes. We counted policies and pills, praised forecasts and feared figures. We stood over a ledger of changeable items and demanded peace from numbers that refused to hold still. It is little wonder anxiety grew. The accountant was faithful to a false premise. When you count threats, you will collect fear as interest. When you locate power in what can change, the heart will tremble at every change. No, no. Let us close that book. Let us open another. In my oneness with God, I find my completeness. Not a peace supplemented by circumstance, but completeness, prior to condition. In my oneness with God, I find my safety. Not a safety dependent on walls, but safety as presence without circumference. In my oneness with God, I find my peace. Not a peace negotiated by favorable weather, but peace that is the weather of spirit. This is not denial of practical needs. It is reallocation of trust. Forms remain, but they return to their rightful status as effects. Supply appears as form, yes, but not as cause. Guidance may look like a phone call, an opportunity, a doctor's wisdom, a neighbor's kindness, but the cause is one. Thou shalt have no other gods but one is the arithmetic of security. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. Therefore, I need not clutch at fragments. I rest in source and watch form serve. Hear the contrast. The old inventory. Health as chemistry, money as master, approval as oxygen. The new inventory. Life as spirit, sufficiency as grace, worth as identity in God. The old inventory. Forecasts, control, contingency plans upon contingency plans. The new inventory. Presence, guidance, love. The old ledger hired the mind as treasurer and paid in panic. The new ledger appoints spirit as all in all and pays in quiet. Say it slowly, inwardly or aloud, so the heart can hear. In my oneness with God, I find clarity for this step. In my oneness with God, I find the wisdom to wait and the courage to move. In my oneness with God, I find sufficiency, without bargaining, without fear. In my oneness with God, I find love that spills beyond myself and returns as harmony. In my oneness with God, I find freedom from the compulsion to manage what God already is. Security, then, is not achieved by controlling life. It is realized by resting identity in life. Absent from the body, present with the Lord, is the address of this rest. God is the actor and the doer and the beer. I am merely the instrument. As instrument, I do not hoard tones. I yield to music. As you sow, so shall ye reap. Sow oneness, reap sufficiency. Sow trust, reap composure. And when the habit of counting threats arises, return the mind to the only sum that balances. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Repeat it once, and then live as if it is true, because it is. In that living, the inventory changes, and with it, the atmosphere of your life. Now we must look with tenderness at something most of us would rather pass by. Much of what we call anxiety is built on the altar of me and mine. My protection, my image, my outcome, my control. It is not wickedness, it is habit. It is the body self clutching at fragments and calling the clutch peace. But peace will not be rented by a fist. Peace resides where the hand opens because identity is no longer counted in private portions. Love thy neighbor as thyself is not sentiment, it is cosmic law. There is one life. To make two out of one is to divide the indivisible, and the cut is felt first in the cutter. As you sow, so shall ye reap. Sow separateness and reap unrest. Sow love and reap ease. Let me say it plainly and without scolding. Envy tightens the chest because it believes in private supply. Comparison agitates because it enthrones a ranking that never rests. Resentment burns because it keeps yesterday's fiction alive for judgment today. Suspicion prowls because it imagines a universe of competing hungers. All of these are pledges of allegiance to a self apart, and the law returns them as tremor. No. No. We cannot violate one and hope to feel whole. When I want nothing you have, and you want nothing I have, the basis for inner war ends. Not apathy, love. Not indifference, oneness. This is not a program of self-improvement. It is a change of basis. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. Therefore, your good does not subtract from mine, and mine does not compete with yours. There is not a pie of blessings. There is a presence without circumference. The sun does not ration light. When that becomes more than a sentence, when it becomes location, jealousy has no argument to make. Absent from the body, present with the Lord, we cease to count our worth by mirrors and balance sheets, and love begins to breathe as the very atmosphere of I. Try it in the hours that actually hurt. Someone is praised while your work goes unnoticed. Bless them. Quietly, sincerely. Father, fulfill thyself as their good and mine. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Feel the fist unclench. A rumor whispers against someone you do not prefer. Refuse the meal. Love thy neighbor as thyself does not bargain for deserving. It obeys law. A contract goes to another firm. Cooperate with the flow. If one is the cause, then effects are suited to their places, and your place is not diminished by theirs. This is not passivity. It is fidelity to one. Self-honesty must be gentle to be true. If you find envy, do not punish yourself. Notice it as weather. Who is aware of it? Awareness is not envious. Let the admission be a doorway, not a dungeon. God is the actor and the doer and the beer. I am merely the instrument. Do not strain to become loving. Let love love. Sit a moment, absent from the body, present with the Lord, and whisper only once, "Live thou thy life. Fulfill thyself in me." Then be still. In the stillness, the self contracts less, and love expands as atmosphere. And where love is the air we breathe, anxiety cannot catch its breath. For in oneness, there is nothing to guard, nothing to steal, nothing to fear. Only the law fulfilled. Thou shalt have no other gods but one. love thy neighbor as thyself. And the heart, relieved of competition, discovers again its home sentence. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Now we come to the simple word you can carry into every hour. The living key that is not a charm and not a bargain. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Hear it as address, not incantation. It is not spoken to fetch a distant help. It names the help that is presence. It does not ask tomorrow to be kind. It reveals that I, here, am not in the physical and not at the mercy of forecasts. It places identity where it belongs, absent from the body, present with the Lord. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Let the sentence say itself in you until the saying is quieter than breath, until it feels like home rather than a tool. How shall you use it? At the first stir of anxiety, before the mind files a report, before the story arranges its witnesses, pause. Do not analyze. Do not confer with the body. Let the breath do what breath does. On the out-breath or the in-breath, without forcing either, speak inwardly and slowly. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Do not rush to get to the end as if the end were the power. Every word is whole. Rest in the meaning between the words. Then be still. No. No. Do not check for results. Do not glance back at the symptom to see if it is impressed. The mantra is not a lever. It is a yielding of the lever. God is the actor and the doer and the beer. I am merely the instrument. This is non-interference in practice. You do not press the sentence against life to make life obey. You let the sentence release you from the false burden of being your own savior. In that yielding, a second power is dismissed. Thou shalt have no other gods but one is fulfilled as trust, not as tension. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. Therefore, effects return to their place as effects, and the cause stands as one. Sometimes the outward weather softens. Sometimes it does not. But the center remembers its dwelling, and panic cannot rule where it has no throne. Carry it into the ordinary. In traffic, when the pulse climbs. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. And then quiet. At the bedside, when the unknown crowds the room. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. And then quiet. At the screen, when numbers scowl. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. And then quiet. Say it once or twice, enough to lift allegiance from nerves and narratives, and then rest, desireless, present with the Lord. As you sow, so shall ye reap. Sow remembrance, and you reap composure. Sow oneness, and you reap guidance without panic. Now let there be a little space. No asking, no plan, only presence. And from that stillness, let a single prayer rise without strain. Live thou my life. Fulfill thyself in me. Nothing added, nothing managed, only yielded being. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. And so it is, and I thank you.